little bit of breaking news around the New Orleans Saints here today. This coming down the pike just 10 minutes ago. So on Monday, we learned the very surprising news that the Saints were releasing safety J.T. Gray, one of their special teams aces, their special teams captain. Now we know why, or we know the corresponding move. The Saints have moved Jake Haener to the active roster. So that does, in fact, fill the void left by safety J.T. Gray. I'm not surprised. I think there's two parts of this. Number one is I'm not surprised that they're adding Haener to the active roster. Because remember, he can be the emergency quarterback on game day, and so long as he doesn't play, you can make up that spot on your actives, on your game day actives, right? So he can be dressed on the sideline, won't count as one of your actives, but in case you need him, he could go in and play. So I get that part of it, that here you're in game week, and so you're going to activate Jake Haener as a just in case. That makes sense, right? I mean, the new NFL rule allows for this. When you can have the emergency quarterback dressed on game day. Makes sense. What I don't think makes sense is why you released J.T. Gray to sign the emergency quarterback to the active roster. I'm not going to pound the table to be really mad about this because I don't know that that's necessary. I could hear the argument for letting go of J.T. Gray if it was to sign someone to the active roster at a position where you were really thin and you were going to need depth. The offensive line, the defensive backfield, places like that would make sense. Right? Trevor Penning, we think he's going to be good to go, but he's been dealing with a toe injury. How healthy is he? We'll see. We already know you've lost Will Clapp. You've lost Nick Saldiveri. You've had some injuries there that's affected your depth. So if there was a good lineman available that you wanted to sign to the active roster to give you some depth on game day, great. That makes sense. As opposed to having J.T. Gray, who's probably not going to help you in the defensive backfield. He's a really good special teams player. Still is a really good special teams player. But is only going to affect a few plays in the game on special teams. Whereas giving depth on offense or defense could affect an entire series, a half, based on whatever might happen throughout the course of the game. I guess it begs the question, what's more valuable, having Jake Haener as an emergency quarterback or having J.T. Gray as the guy that's going to make all your tackles on special teams? My opinion would be that I'd rather have J.T. Gray make all the tackles on special teams, because if Jake Haener's playing, you're screwed anyway. And maybe that's a defeatist mentality and way of looking at it, but let's just be very honest. This was a guy who you drafted and you just cut after training camp. Now you've brought him back to the practice squad, and this is probably going to be one of those up-down type seasons for Haener, where he signed and then waived and then signed and waived. He'll probably be back and forth to the practice squad and all that sort of stuff throughout the course of this season. But we've also seen what it looks like when Jake Haener has the opportunity to play, and it's just not very good. A season ago, Jake Haener saw action in 8 games. He was 18 for 39, so that's a 46% completion rate. He threw for 226 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. His rating was a 62.6. He's just not a very good player. Not to say he can't at some point be maybe a serviceable backup, but he's certainly not even that right now. And this is a 2-horse race with Rattler and Shuck, as we well know. So that makes it a little difficult to justify adding him to the active roster. But again, let me rephrase that. I understand adding him to the active roster because of the opportunity to have an emergency quarterback on game day. I get that. Taking J.T. Gray's spot to add an emergency quarterback, to me, is problematic. I remember years ago when Tom Tupa was punting for the Jets, and they got into a situation where their quarterbacks were hurt, and Tom Tupa had to go play quarterback for the Jets. The punter had to play quarterback for the Jets. As I recall, he was playing quarterback while wearing his punting shoes, which is wild to think. Might have that part of it wrong, but I think I got it right. I remember in the COVID year, I mean, there was the practice squad receiver from the Broncos who ended up playing quarterback against the Saints in that season. Ian Book in the COVID year ended up playing starting on a Monday Night Football game for New Orleans. Again, those are super outlier, rare, extenuating circumstances during the COVID year. But the point remains, if you get down to the point where Jake Haener's got to play, you're in a world of trouble anyway. Wouldn't you rather have JT Gray running around making tackles on special teams? Because in a game with Arizona, where you might actually have a chance to win on your home field, a big play here on special teams could tip the field one way or another. It's an interesting decision. We'll see what Kellen Moore has to say about it. But the Saints say farewell to JT Gray, and the corresponding move is signing Jake Haener from the practice squad to the active roster. Another way to think of it is this. After you waived Jake Haener, nobody put in a waiver claim on him. That means, and again, if a team was going to put in a waiver claim, that means they would have had to sign Haener to their active roster. He would have had to take a 53-man roster spot from someone else. And none of the other 31 teams in the NFL thought he was worthy of a 53-man roster spot. Yet here the Saints are bidding farewell to an all-pro and your special teams captain. They wore the C on his jersey for special teams to sign Jake Haener to the active roster. That's curious. But then again, I think the Saints have made a lot of curious decisions with personnel and with the roster. We've talked plenty about it. And maybe the other news of the day with the Saints adding Thomas Dimitroff to the front office, maybe that's to add another veteran set of eyes to this Saints front office. If you missed this news, so Thomas Dimitroff, who was the longtime Falcons GM, he was there for 13 years and actually was the guy who is really responsible in the front office for building that roster around Matt Ryan for all those years that went to a Super Bowl. And they had more wins than losses. He after being fired in Atlanta, Dimitroff has kind of gone into media and consulting. He's got a podcast that he does called the GM Journey podcast. He actually interviewed Mickey Loomis on it a couple of years ago. But it is an interesting trend that the Saints are following here because they keep hiring former GMs. Like former Raiders GM Dave Ziegler was on the Saints staff as a consultant last year and left for a position with the Titans this year. Mickey Loomis also has Jeff Ireland, who's a former GM on staff, Randy Mueller, who's a former Saints GM, who was Loomis's boss at one point, on staff as well. So it's interesting that you keep having these former NFL general managers join your staff in these support roles, but to what end and how much autonomy do they have? I guess the questions to ask are twofold. Number one, in hiring Dimitroff, are you potentially hiring Mickey Loomis's replacement? Or number two, is Mickey Loomis just hiring yes men, his friends in the business that are going to tell him what he wants to hear? Such an interesting time in New Orleans with the Saints because it's the first time in a decade and a half that they're just not expected to be in any way competitive as they go through this rebuild and what this may look like. But Thomas Dimitroff has been added to the Saints front office as a consultant. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.